All right. Well, I started this project 3 years ago because a client of mine came to me and said, what are people doing across push SMS and email? Are they sending the same message or are they sending independent messages? And the only way to really figure that out was to capture push on a regular basis because, as you know, it's here today, gone tomorrow. So I started for all these clients that I had subscribed to their app, captured their push, started capturing those pushes every day, the SMS on a weekly basis, and the email, and then lining them up by retailer to say, what are they doing here? Are they integrated or are they independent? So that was how the first thing happened. And then I find that there are lots of customers that are just getting started with this, and the first thing they always want to know is, what are the other kids doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are other people doing? What are our competitors doing? How is this working? And so even though it's not scientific research, it's not the same set every year, they're just the things that I subscribe to and so on. I find it's really useful just to line them all up, look at them and say, what are kind of some of the main trends here? What's happening with push SMS and email?
So you subscribe to like one brand and then you subscribe to their email, their push, and their SMS, and you kind of watched it during a certain week.
Yes,
Okay.
during the Black Friday and Cyber Monday weeks.
Okay, very cool. That's a great. I usually you'd see kind of people do SMS and maybe email or social. That's nice. You also include push in there as well.
I had to do push because push is the most difficult to capture, on an iPhone. It goes into your notifications, and after a couple of days, it just disappears.
It's gone.
Yes. So
Yep.
and then to be able to look at what they're doing, you have to kind of slice them all up and put them on a slide. So it's just a lot of kind of putsy work. But I've come from the email world where there are services like Email Data Source that can show you any email that you want, and you
Mm-hmm.
can look at what your competitors are doing. It's pretty easy to subscribe to a competitor and see what they're doing, but it's really hard to look at all three and sort of see what the trends are and what people are doing.
Yeah, so you have a list of kind of different topics. The first one was cadence, and I think that is really important, especially during like a holiday. What did you find out in terms of the cadence?
Well, it's interesting. This was the first year that I found push senders had really amped up the volume. Previously, they were only sending a few a week, and this was the first holiday that I saw that people were sending 2 and sometimes 3 push messages in the same day.
Wow. Okay.
And so I think that's interesting. It may lead to a lot of app uninstalls, and as you know, trying to get that app customer is an expensive proposition. So I don't have any results from this particular one. Wasn't a client, but would really want to test the way the app uninstalls against the effectiveness of those messages. So that was interesting. SMS stayed the same, and that's not terribly surprising because, as you know, most of these customers signed up with a specific volume agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the rules have changed a lot, now you can just let customers know that they're going to be recurring messages. Back in the day, you had to tell people, basically, we won't send you any more than 5 per month, which was pretty typical.
Yep.
And so even though the rules have changed, the retailer's legal department say, no, this is the agreement we made with the customer when they signed up. We will not exceed this.
Yep. So you're talking about when people text in or join online, it would always say like, 5 per month, messages. Right. And
exactly.
You can't go over that 5 per month. And now a lot of retailers and brands are switching more to you're opting in for recurring text messages rather than 5 per month, because you never know. Sometimes you might want to send that 6th message.
And I wonder if that's going to be ultimately to the advantage of SMS. I think that customers that don't want to be overloaded with messages, and if they're getting 3 push in a day, they might consider that a little bit of overload. I think that being able to have that predictable quantity is really something in favor of SMS. I just want to know, what the big message is this week. I don't need to hear from you 3 times a day. I don't need to hear from you 2 times a day. And email is way over the top.
Yeah.
So for this year, on average per week, my retailers are sending 4 push, 2 SMS, and 11 email.
Wow,
so
that's crazy. Do you think it has to do with, the open rate of SMS has been reported at about 99%, and I think it's 93% are open within 3 minutes. Do you think it seems like, do you think email open rates are lower than everything else? And then second would be push, and then obviously top is SMS. Do you think they're kind of, looking at the open rates and going, well, if only 15% open rate, I'm just going to send this 11 times, so at least they open it once?
Return Path did a study, found that there were a lot of secondary accounts, and by secondary that meant very little personal email, lots of commercial email, not a lot of activity.
Okay.
So it's an account people are setting aside to look at when they're interested, when they're shopping. And Gmail tabs sort of had that impact as well. And so there's a lot of volume in email. It's a very mature medium, but they're very good at analyzing what happens. And every time they send an email, they make tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's very difficult to sell at the CEO or even the CMO level to say, we should really send less email.
Mm-hmm.
It's also become somewhat akin to search engine optimization. Retailers are sending so much that you want to be at the top of the inbox when the customer is in that inbox. And if they're getting lots of retail email and they have those secondary accounts that they only use for shopping, you can end up way at the bottom.
Okay.
So, and people, they may be looking at email over coffee in the morning. They may be doing it, on the commute to work. They may be doing it in the evening. And so by sending 3 times, they're hitting all of those points. You get opt-outs, but they're still making tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It still works for them. So, okay, so it could be,
Very-
the open rate, could be an impact, and then also it could just be timing during the day. If they're only going to look at that inbox once, you might want to hit it, a couple different times during the day so that, it ends up at the top of that inbox.
Exactly.
Which we don't have that with SMS, because really SMS, most people only have one phone number. And then most of the time people are opening it, I think, 93% within 3 minutes. They're opening it when you send it. So it's not like I'm going to check my SMS at 5 o'clock each day. They're checking it the minute, you send it.
Exactly. So, what we've seen is I just did pull together some quick numbers of a bunch of our retailers to see what their response rate was for email versus SMS. And SMS was anywhere from 5 to 10 times as the response rate.
Wow.
On the other hand, the lists are a lot smaller.
Yes.
So
yeah.
it's so what I always say is you're commanding a small but powerful army.
Exactly.
And particularly with retail over the holidays, when suddenly you have a need that you really need to push this product or to plus up your sales. It takes days and weeks to get an email out with all the approvals and the creative and everything that's involved in that. With SMS, you can literally do it in minutes. So to me, that's really something in favor of SMS.
That is interesting with, the push and the SMS. It's most of the time just text, and now people are starting to do MMS a little more. And I think you have a note on that later on. But then email, it's you have subject lines, you have the content, you have the images, where does it link to? Like, it feels like a much more complex process to create an email.
Absolutely is. You have links and you have to test that and, and all of those things. So much easier to do via SMS.
Yeah.
It's quicker, people are more responsive, but it's more difficult to get a lot of subscribers.
Okay. So during this time, I think you said there was was that 11 emails per day?
Or per week.
Per week. 11 emails per week. How many push messages were there?
4.
4 and then 2 SMS.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then the second one you have here is prominence.
Well, you'd mentioned MMS earlier. So of these 14 retailers, and these are all major retailers that, there's nobody small and obscure. These are all big retailers. And there was only one MMS in my entire set.
Interesting.
It is. And, it was a great animated GIF, and they had double points and $10 cash back and 15% off site-wide. So it's really effective. It's so much more impactful than straight text.
Yeah.
On the other hand, as I'm sure you know, the MMS ecosystem is it's slow. There's slow throughput. You have to get a carrier approval in advance. And so it's just it's not for mission critical messages. It's problematic, and people are really just shying away from it. So
it's
really
more of a process, is what you're saying. Like, it is similar to kind of the email. You have to get, an image, a GIF, a video, and producing a video is no easy task for a large business.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. And I think it's also just the volume constraints. We're saying if you have any more than about 400,000, I don't know what your experience has been, but it's 30 per minute instead of.
Yep.
I'm not remembering what SMS is.
Yeah, SMS is much faster in terms of how many you can send per second. One thing that we've found for the larger lists is to send by time zone, because we have found that MMS is much more, it produces better results, and it's much more interesting. And I think I don't have specifics on this, but I would assume also when you make a message more interesting, the opt-out rates go down as well. Because, hey, this is interesting and valuable. I want to stick around to see what the next one will be. Where if a text message, 160 characters, you're like, I've had enough of this, and you opt out. So one hack that we found for large lists, north of 500,000 subscribers, is if you want to send it out, make sure you start on the East Coast and then send over to the West Coast, so that you're not, because if you do have 1 million subscribers, you're sending, let's say, 30 messages a second, you could have people on the East Coast receiving it at midnight. So you want to get them out the door first, then focus on Central, then focus on Pacific, then move over to Hawaii. That's a great way to kind of tackle that problem that the carriers just don't have that much bandwidth for MMS.
That's a great point and a really smart approach. I find a lot of our retailers don't know anything more about their SMS subscribers than their phone number.
True.
And so,
yep.
But I've seen some great little mobile preference centers. The Gap always does a great one for all of their different brands. Once you opt in, they say, so tell us a few things about yourself, and they ask you, sort of what departments you shop in and your name and I think your birthday. So I think that's a great opportunity. And then there's always progressive profiling, which is just a fancy way of sending somebody a message to ask them for that key data point that you need. I think as long as we don't go overboard and ask people too much personal information, but time zone I think is absolutely critical, and that's a really smart approach.
Yeah, it's worked well, especially for the large small campaigns. It really doesn't matter because they're going to go out 30 messages a second or whatever rate you're sending at.
Right.
But yeah, and we have found a lot of interest in MMS. But as you can see, with an MMS, you have a subject. We've limited to 500 characters, so you have a lot more characters, a lot more spelling mistakes that can happen, a lot more copy. And then you can put, an image, a GIF, an animated image, or a video. So it's just a lot more stuff going on than the plain 160 characters. But it does work, but it takes more time.
Right. So, like you, I know you're a big fan and holding out a lot of hope for RCS.
Yes.
So, and I've shared your content with many of our clients and my internal colleagues, and so I really think that's the way. It's the wave of the future, that you're able to have color and graphics and imagery and those action buttons and better tracking. I really hope that iOS falls into line, and when we're talking about this next year, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and just for the people that don't know, RCS is rich communication messaging, and it's essentially a better text message, and it will be open to businesses. So you can send, high definition images. You can click on the images. You can put buttons in your text message, things of that nature. So yeah, I think it's going to be really great. The rollout, though, right now, obviously Apple has not committed to adopting it. So in the United States, which we're in the United States, that's 50%-ish of the subscribers. And then for, Android devices, it's only going to be most likely on new devices. So it is going to be a long rollout, but I can definitely see the potential. But then also, like you said, it's going to take longer to create these messages because now there's even more. I would say it's more intricate or more advanced than even an email. So people might shy away from it just because of the complexity.
I think it's going to be so much. I think the brand experience will be so greatly improved that
It'll be worth it.
will be on board. Yeah, I think the response will be there as well. But
That's cool. That's good to hear.
we shall see.
Yeah, exactly. So,
sorry, another thing about prominence is just what we were seeing with push with emojis. But I know that push is sort of not your area. I do want to avoid talking about push.
No, push. And you're saying, were you seeing a lot of emojis?
Yes. So, it used to be that, there would be the spare emoji every now and then, and research had shown that push notifications with emojis in them do better. And this was the first year that I saw multiple emojis. So I had lots.
Everybody read the same study, and then they put them all in.
There's the tree and the Santa and the wrapped present. Seeing a more rich push, particularly from Victoria's Secret and Staples. There's a little thumbnail, and you can press on that and have the expanded image.
Oh,
and
very
of course,
cool.
For companies like Victoria's Secret, they're very brand conscious. They're very concerned about having great iconic photography in their messages. So that was a big plus for them. And then Walmart even dressed up their logo for the holiday, and those
very cool.
At the top of all the push. So.
And does Salesforce support emojis in text messages?
We do not.
Okay, and we don't either. I know they're trying to push that right now to try to make it more mainstream. So that would be interesting if in text messages you could put emojis across the board, and I would assume that it would get better response rates if you're seeing it with push messaging.
Absolutely. Well, we know that graphic elements draw the eye and they increase readership of text. It happens in email, it happens in push. I'm sure it would be the same in SMS. As I understand it, it's an issue with whether the recipient's phone is able to process that and how it processes it. So.
Yeah, it's kind of in all the wireless carriers plus the aggregators. Everybody kind of has to sync up, and because I know some phones can accept it perfectly, but then the aggregator can't send it. So it's kind of like RCS. Everybody needs to get on board.
Right.
The interesting thing, going back to the MMS portion, was it wasn't an image and it wasn't a video. It was like an animated image, right?
Yeah, it's just an animated GIF. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. We're seeing, because the video is very hard to produce. Like you gotta get a camera, and if you're a big brand, you have to hire someone to do that, obviously. And an image is kind of boring; it's just a static image. The middle ground is definitely that GIF or animated image, and we're seeing the same thing. And that's interesting that the only MMS you saw was an animated image. So I definitely encourage brands, if they have a little bit of money but they don't have the video kind of money, to maybe make their image a little more interesting and make it animated.
With retailers, they often have video. So I know I have many MMS examples stored up, and one of those is a runway show that someone did, and so they were able to encapsulate that runway show. So I don't think it's a matter of producing video so much as being able to repurpose video that they're using in other channels.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you're seeing a lot of repurposing of videos where I think the majority of our brands are they're looking at it as, oh, if I want to send a message about this, I have to create a video for it. Essentially, your clients are taking the video that already exists, slicing it up, making it MMS appropriate in terms of the size and the scope, and then inputting it into the message.
Yes.
Okay, but even like slicing up a video, takes an editor. It is a much more laborious process than just an image.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, and then the next one we have here is content.
I want to say one more thing on that one, if I may. And I'm interested in what you think about this. I think a real missed opportunity with SMS is blank lines.
Yes.
It takes up 2 characters to insert a blank line, but when you look at something, and I've got examples, that has a little white space in it versus something that's just a solid block of text, it's such an easy thing to do. And occasionally I'll see one that will actually have 2 links in it, and they're so much more easy to tap when they're separated by space. So I think white space is the quick win, easy way to improve your SMS. What do you think?
Yeah, no, we've done a video about this on our YouTube channel, and essentially even if it didn't increase conversions, it just makes the message look better. And just so we're clear, is essentially it'll be, you're kind of breaking up the message. So there's a little bit of white space between, the call to action and the click here, or the terms and conditions can be at the bottom. And it's similar to what people do with email, is they, have different paragraphs. If you put it all in one paragraph, people would just skim over it. And I think that's what people do, especially in MMS. If you have 500 characters and it's all just one block of text, people just skim over it. But I think if you can put it into pieces and take up that extra 1 or 2 characters to put that line break in, I recommend it for everybody.
Excellent. I couldn't agree.
Yeah, good tip for everybody out there. So then there's content.
Right. So one of the goals of this research was just to see what are people doing. And I guess it's not too surprising to know, they're all really about, it's during the holidays, it's about the big promotions that they have to offer.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to line them all up and see what people are doing. I think the best content in there is not, hey, we have stuff on sale. Everyone knows you're a retailer and it's Black Friday. You've probably got stuff on sale. So, but it's, on the other hand, it's good to remind customers to shop with you. But those that seem to have the most compelling messages also have some store-wide or site-wide offer. There's a gift with purchase, or we have 20% off site-wide, or and so on. So it really is it's a sale announcement. It's a reminder to shop with you, but it really sweetens the pot if there is some kind of offer that can be applied to everyone.
Okay.
I have seen with my other customers we look at this stuff all year round, and when the content is focused on a particular product line or a particular product, it doesn't do as well as if the focus is broader. Because I might not be interested in X today,
yes,
but the 20% off site wide. Well, let me go see what I have, what you have that I need today.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you go too narrow, sometimes it will exclude a certain percentage of your list. If you go too wide, it might not seem exclusive enough, but it does capture everybody because it's 20% off everything.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, what about the difference between the content or the type of messages they're sending between email, push, and SMS? Is it kind of the same stuff that they're sending, or is it completely different?
Well, that was the original goal of this research, and I found it was the same this year as last year, which is I put them all together, looked at what was the same, and for the same, it had to be the same, essentially the same offer, push, SMS, and then in the subject line and pre-header that shows up in a mobile inbox.
Okay.
Because I guess that's the first glance. That's the glance at your content that most customers have.
Yep.
And this year, like last year, only 15% of those messages had the same content, which is surprising to me. And I know a lot of marketers will say, well, we don't want to overload the customer. We don't want to bore the customer. We need to have a unique value proposition for each channel. And my feeling really is the opposite, that repetition pays off, and that if you have a strong offer, you should trumpet that strong offer. It looks very odd when you line them up and you say, okay, this message, this email subject line said, 20% off and free shipping, but the push message just said 20% off. Why wouldn't you have the most compelling benefits that you possibly can in that short form message? Our customers are not like we are going to line those up and review that content at the same time. The chances of them ever looking at it within a short time frame is pretty small. I think the customers sadly just don't pay as much attention to us as we think they are. So, my feeling is amplify it across channels. And I do have one customer that has done this and said, yes, when we have the same message across channels, it does better than if we just focus on a particular channel.
Interesting. And I think that comes back to kind of that open rate, because, if you had, let's say, 100% open rate on all the channels, it might be a little excessive, because it's like, hey, I got your message via text message. I got the push message, and it's the same thing you sent me in the email. Why am I subscribed to all of these? But I think what you're seeing right now is it's kind of like a scattered approach. They're shooting it out there, to a customer, trying all the different channels, and hopefully they should be doing the same message, and then they're seeing which actual message gets read. That's interesting, because and I look at it too, because we focus here at Tatango on just SMS. So if you hit with SMS, you get 99% open rate. So if you hit the same message to the same subscriber, let's say you were doing 2-3 times a day and you were sending the same 20% off discount, that would be excessive. But I think what you're finding is, with the email, because let's say it's, a certain percentage, 10 to 20% open rates, depending on kind of the retailer or whatever. And then you have the push, which, really can vary, and then SMS. You're really kind of spraying the one message out there and seeing which channel the customer actually sees that message on.
Right, that's a great point, because they're going to interact with you however and whenever they choose. I don't think that it's likely that someone's going to subscribe to all 3 of those channels, look at them and say, wow, I'm really getting this a lot. When you consider that all advertising is based on repetition, those ads that follow you around, those retargeting ads, they're annoying, but they really work because they're just reminding you, hey, this is still in your basket. Are you sure you don't want this? So I think repetition is the foundation of advertising. People will interact with you however and whenever they want. And, it happens in fleeting moments. It doesn't happen, no one's really lining those messages up and comparing.
Yep. One thing, I don't see a lot of SMS or brands that are using SMS doing right now is really making, and I think we're seeing this with social. You can't just constantly put out promotions like a discount. You got to kind of add some value to the customer. I would love to see brands, and I think you're starting to see this with email, and I think it kind of cascades all the way down to SMS eventually. I would love to see, maybe if you're a Target or something, you get, Dyson to do a 20-second demo of how good the Dyson vacuum is. Or, something that I would look at it and go, that's really interesting. Or like how to fly a drone in 20 seconds. Something, or why your kid is going to ask for a drone for Christmas. Like, put in a little, I would say, more effort and more education. And I think eventually that does, it's harder to measure because it's not like, oh, use this 20% code, but it can be at the very end, hey, want to buy a drone for your kid? Here's a 20% off coupon. And I think that would decrease the opt-out rates. And then it would increase, I think, engagement, and people would feel like they're getting a little something extra for subscribing to one of these different channels.
Well, that's a great point. And it becomes really tough when you are measuring revenue. And so those content-driven offers, as you said, are never going to do as well as the discount offers. It's the main reason that people sign up for email, for SMS, for almost anything when it comes to a retailer. So it's a very tough case to prove. And when you have content, it just never drives the same kind of revenue. Home Depot does it very well. They have their garden club messages, and they give you sort of gardening tips on that, and they support that with SMS. I've seen other retailers do it with wish lists and gift ideas and things like that. So I think that there's some opportunity there, but it's tough to execute because it just never brings in the same kind of dollars in the short term. Yeah,
exactly. It's the short term versus the long term. And, if you're paying per text message or paying per email or push or whatever, it's nice to get that, investment back as soon as possible. So I do see the same thing. People stick to the tried and true, which is, 20% off and show this, code.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, so the next one is timing.
A lot of retailers are always wondering, what's the day of week? What's the best day of week to send? And in email, this is something that drives me insane because there really is no best day to mail. And I think that that's somewhat the answer here. So because this followed Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it's not surprising to know that Friday and Monday were the high days.
Okay.
What was surprising to me was that Saturday and Sunday were really low volume rates for push and SMS both. And that's when customers are out shopping or they're in the store, they're the most likely to convert. And so to be able to get that quick message, here's your 20% off coupon while you're in the store, I'm at the mall and they're just down down the street, or here's this great offer, that to me is a great time to reach those customers. I think that a lot of marketers don't do it because then they have to be responsible for a message going out when they're not in the office. And
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's because they have to actually send a message on the weekend. And I love mobile marketers. But,
right.
I think even if they schedule it for Saturday, you still got to kind of watch it, to make sure that, nothing changed. Or also the world changes. We've had scheduled messages where, something changes. Maybe an issue happens or something negative, and they don't think it's a good time to send out a promotion, and they have to go in and cancel the message that's scheduled. So it isn't as easy as just scheduling the message and forgetting it. You do have to kind of be present and aware that it's going out.
Right, and I think there's also some legacy thinking, that Thursday, the 25 to 34-year-old mother of two is planning for her weekend shopping. I think there's a lot of that thinking, as opposed to, on Saturday or Sunday, they actually have the internet with them in their hands. And so there's our opportunity.
Yeah.
And I have had one customer that tested Friday versus Saturday and found Saturday did much better. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for testing, and that's where customers should be going.
One of the things I think you hit on the head was testing. I think a lot of people just send their message, maybe they come from the email world and they go, oh, Thursday was the best, a day 10 years ago. So that's just what the best day is. And now they're transferring it to SMS and they don't test anything. Are you seeing, I guess you said that they tested Friday and Saturday and they found that Saturday was better.
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of testing. I feel like the SMS teams are frequently, it's one person who has many other job responsibilities, and testing is just very low on the priority list. I haven't seen anybody, we look at day of week, but if the offer is different on every single day, the time of year is different.
Yeah.
As you have to hold all factors constant to get good test results. So I'm not seeing as much testing as I would really like to see. It's the only way to really know.
Yeah, it does seem, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll prep and then they'll send the email, and then the SMS is the last thing before they walk out the door. So it is kind of hard to put the amount of subscribers that usually a retailer has for their email compared to their SMS is much greater on the email side.
So true. I always say, it's really this sort of chicken and egg thing. We don't have a lot of subscribers, so we don't put a lot of effort into our program. Yeah. We don't have much of a program, so we don't really do anything to attract subscribers.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody that does, Kohl's does a fantastic job, and they promote their messages all over the place. They know what's working for them. They track both online and in-store sales, which is really important and something that not a lot do. So when you have people that are really paying attention, it makes such a huge difference. I have another retailer that I work with, and they had somebody that came into the program and was really enthusiastic about it and has grown it by leaps and bounds. And the difference in response and subscribers and everything is fantastic. So often all it takes is one person to be really paying attention.
Yeah, it's the effort that you put in really, can have huge results. But as you know, a lot of these people are short-staffed. They're also managing social email, all the other things. So sometimes it's just impossible.
Well, my feeling is, it's like, this is the same as essentially writing an email subject line and pre-header. That's it. That's all the effort it takes. This is not that once a week.
It's not
you
rocket science. Yeah.
Yes.
I like it. Okay, so let's see. I think the next one was cross-channel.
Right, and I started to talk about that when I mentioned Kohl's. A lot of SMS programs are just driving people online because it's like, okay, that's the thing that you can do. But I think that there's also such a great opportunity for using phones in store, and we know that that Deloitte did a study back in 2016. 37% of retail sales in store were impacted by the use of a mobile device. We know that 40% of customers are searching for digital coupons, one of my favorite use cases for SMS when they're in store. So the in-store factor is huge. And I had a retailer look at, they had both, they always have a promotion code that you can redeem at checkout online, as well as a barcode that you can use in store. And they know that the in-store redemption is actually somewhat lower than actual, because people are trying to get on their phone and the clerk just says, never mind, and they click the 20% off button. So it's understated, and yet there was twice as many redemptions and twice as many sales happening in store as there were online when they're able to measure both. So just driving customers online, either from an app or a text message, to me is a huge missed opportunity, because when customers are in store, that's when they're really looking for those offers.
Yep. So it might not even be kind of the device or anything. It's really just, where they are at that one time, and in the store, they have a higher propensity to buy when they're in the store. So it has nothing to do with the mobile phone or maybe the subscriber. It's just when they're in the store, they're ready to buy.
Right. And I've looked at the long tail of response. I don't know if you've ever looked at this with your clients, but even though these retail sale windows are very short, end Saturday.
Yes.
But we'll see thousands of responses that come in after that. And, the picture that I get in my mind is I'm in store, I've got my phone, it's like, oh, well, let me see if I've got a coupon from Kohl's. And so they're looking that up. And so it's also a good reason to, if you have a link, rather than have it go to a page that just says this offer is expired, say,
yes,
this offer is expired, click here to go to, today's deals.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about user experience and what happens when a consumer doesn't follow the instructions. As you said, it's already expired, but if people try it, take them somewhere, send them a video, like give them some value, maybe send them to the new promotion. Don't just make an error page.
Exactly.
Another good example, if you go to any Target store and just kind of walk around, you will see the call to actions in store that are the whole,
those.
Yeah, you'll get the message back with the coupon. So it's definitely, if you live near a Target, definitely go check it out, because it's worth looking at those call to actions.
I love those. I call that marketing on demand. You can, I was in a seminar once and someone said that the biggest challenge for marketers is scaling our programs for the unengaged. And I thought, this is the perfect application of unengaged. And one of the really great things about SMS is, I'm not getting your email. I'm not signed up for your SMS. I don't want all this stuff from you, but I can get I can get 20% off this item that I'm looking at right here on the shelf, by texting in a message. I'm all in for that. So that to me is a great opportunity for retailers.
And it's a great way to expose people, because I get the same thing. I walk into a cocktail party and people are like, oh, you send those mass text messages, almost as a negative. But, if someone, instead of, just saying, hey, sign up for our text messages, if you're giving them a taste of how good it's going to be when you sign up for the text messages, that's a great way to get their phone number, off the bat and make it a positive experience rather than a trust me, it will be worth it type of experience.
Right. As I said, it offers value first and asks for commitment second.
Exactly. Okay, and the next one is amplification.
Well, this is just this whole idea that we really talked about, which is, what are people sending, and are they sending the same message or not? And so my whole story of amplification is yes, it works better and makes a lot of sense to promote your strongest message across all channels.
Interesting. Now, and one, I guess, counterpoint to that, which I hear a lot, and then sometimes we even say here at Tatango, is giving up an email address is one thing, but giving up your personal cell phone number is a much greater thing. Do you feel like the text messages, because they've given up something very valuable to them, they should get even more than the people that just give up an email address?
Well, that's a really great point. And even though I am a big fan of amplification, of putting your strong message across things, I've also seen really great results when there's a channel exclusive.
Okay.
So I think that one of the ways that you, as you said, those people have given up a lot to you. They've given up their home screen time, which is very personal. And so when we've seen when it's an SMS exclusive versus something that's happening on the web or happening, introduced via email, that those exclusives do really well. I think it's a great reason to continue to have your it's a great reason to subscribe to SMS and continue to subscribe to SMS. You want people to have that fear of missing out if they're not going to get that exclusive offer. And because it is a much smaller audience, much easier to get through finance. You're not going to send this to 30 million people. You're going to send it to 2 million people.
Exactly.
And so you get great redemption rates, but keeps those SMS subscribers engaged and maybe telling their friends.
Yep. And I guess because you get a 99% open rate, you don't have to do the repetition via just the SMS channel because they're seeing that message. Now, repetition definitely helps, but like you said, I think it was 2 messages. One could be the repetition message with the email. It matches everything. And then you could do the exclusive for the second message.
Right. I think the occasional exclusive makes a lot of sense.
And also, I think I don't see anybody doing this, but maybe 1 or 2, but say exclusive. Say this is just for our SMS subscribers. Because if it says 50% off in the message, I kind of assume that everybody else in the world gets this too, if they're on an email, on Twitter, Facebook. But if you say this is only for our SMS subscribers, I bet redemptions would go much higher.
Exclusivity always works. We find the same elements that work in email subject lines tend to work well in SMS. And I think it also speaks to the value of maybe testing those subject lines in email and then using your winning subject line in SMS as well. But those same factors that work in a subject line tend to work in SMS: exclusivity, urgency, and specificity.
Interesting.
So, a specific, dollar off promotion or something like that, as opposed to, hey, we have stuff on sale.
We're seeing the same thing. And that's interesting that you said that they're looking at the email marketing and then using that information to create better SMS. We're seeing the same thing with like Google AdWords and Facebook ads. They're running Facebook ads and they're testing, hundreds of thousands of different versions and very fast to many, many people, across the United States. And then they're using that info to craft a better SMS message.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes.
Yeah.
So on the same lines, but in a different medium makes a ton of sense.
And it's a bigger scope usually because, on Facebook, you can really
Right.
advertise to everyone. So
Right.
I think the numbers, especially if you're doing A/B testing and maybe you have a smaller SMS list, it allows you to A/B test things and then pull that data that you're learning about into the SMS.
Yes, brilliant. Great idea.
And then the last part is the future. Where do you see things going? It seems like we've covered a lot of stuff here and a lot of good, I think, tips and tricks on how, because we're approaching the real holiday season and then New Year's. What can people expect, and then what can people expect in 2018?
Well, I'm just looking as I'm looking at what's happening with RCS and PWAs. We do love our acronyms in the industry. It reminds me of the early days of email when there were text-only emails and people could give you long reasons about why that was the best way to send email because it looked more personal and, didn't have issues with rendering and things like that. But we're a very visually oriented society, and I think only becoming more so. I think the future is more color, more graphics, more action, more trackability, and that's what the promise of RCS, of Rich Communication Services, is all about. So I just can't imagine that that's not the way things are going to end up. And then I think with progressive web apps, the ability to have app-like experiences in the mobile web, which is more searchable, more generally accessible. You don't have the expense of developing an app, making it backwards compatible every time there's a operating system upgrade, attracting and maintaining users. The ability to do all that, to have that experience on a progressive web app, that to me is where we're going. We need it to be prettier, and we need it to be faster, and I think that's where we're going to end up.
Couldn't agree more. It needs to happen faster. That's my only thing is, more images, more buttons. I think we might even leapfrog, things like email, because email is really restricted at this point to the images and the text. I think once RCS launches or is deployed, it's going to be almost like an app-like experience in the text message, which I think that could be a game changer. I think it's just, will all the carriers get on board? When is it going to roll out? And how long is it going to take? If we're looking at 4 years, unfortunately, a lot of stuff changes in 4 years. I want it, next year.
Right. Yes, but I just can't help but think that that's where things are going, and that's the future. What's interesting to me is as long as text messaging has been around, that I really feel like it's in its infancy.
Yep.
I don't see anybody doing anything really radical or fantastic with this yet, and so
it's not too late for brands to get into SMS or MMS or just mobile messaging in general, because I think eventually there'll be so many different channels of mobile messaging. And we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing huge brands that you would expect to have an SMS campaign already, kind of like you expect them to have an email marketing campaign. And we're seeing them just now starting to ask questions and getting interested in SMS. So I think it's taken, 20 plus years, but we're getting there.
Right. Well, and, I think you just need to let the customer interact with you however and whenever they choose. And more that's on their phones. And, and then you have this small but powerful army that you can tap into when you need to promote sales, and you don't have days and weeks in order to put that together. So
exactly.
You've got a very responsive, highly loyal group of people that are waiting for that exclusive offer. So I think there's lots of exciting things yet to come, and lots of exciting things that we can do today.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for putting together this list, and thanks for jumping on this video, and we'll see everybody in 2018.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.